Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business. And I don't know, it's just like our third or fourth time trying to record the pod Frumi. I'm not sure, but firstly, I want to welcome Dr. Frumi Rachel Barr to the show. Welcome, Frumi.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here.
No,
Hope
thank
you've
you.
had great fun so far anyway.
Yeah, we have. I feel like we've connected a few times now and we've had a few false starts, but here we are. And you are based in Winoma, which is a wine region, wine country of California.
Sonoma.
Sonoma. So God, how did I get that so wrong? There you go. Sonoma. I had Winoma, Sonoma, right? But where it's Thursday evening for you, Friday morning here for me. I'm going to introduce you, and then I want you just to tell us about all your experiences and especially what you're doing now. You are one woman that is continuously reshaping, evolving. It's incredible. And yeah, so let's get into it. And thank you again for coming on the show. I feel very honored to be talking to you. You're the founder and CEO of Barr Business School, which is essentially a scale-up advisors venture. You're also an AI strategist, known as the CEO's secret weapon. I love that so much. A certified AI generalist, and you equip CEOs and leadership teams to scale safely with clear operating systems across what's so important, first and foremost, is the people, strategy, execution, cash, and data. I love the way you just call it out as cash. It's so true, right? Or financials. You're a 5-time founder and longtime CEO advisor, and you've authored the book, A CEO's Secret Weapon, How to Accelerate Success, forward by Simon Sinek, and you teach practical modern ways, which includes AI, to improve decisions, culture, and performance. You're a mum with 5 kids. Also, have you got grandchildren? I think you mentioned you did. I could be wrong.
4 grandchildren.
4
4
grandchildren.
under 6.
4 under 6 and a stepson. And you've recently launched a new book, or it's about to come out, which is Raising a CEO from Booster Chair to Boardroom. I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a lot about your journey, because we could go down so many different paths right now, but I'm going to let you guide the conversation, and I'm going to ask questions away. Over to you.
Well, my mother put me in school when I was 3, which meant that I graduated high school when I was 16. And I went to university at McGill in Montreal, and I became a physical therapist. Why that is important is that when I was 24, I self-diagnosed Hodgkin's. And it's because I found it out so quickly, and because I was a physical therapist and knew that the doctor told me something that wasn't quite right, I went literally, as I worked in a hospital, from doctor to doctor, and within 1 week, I was diagnosed, had my spleen out, etc. And that really shaped my life, because at 24, when you know that maybe you're going to live another 5 years or maybe you're not, it really shapes how you think about life. So what that's done for me is I've had multiple lives in this life. So if trends are changing or things are changing, I know when it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So I left physical therapy. I went into business. I actually started a clock manufacturing company, which ended up supplying department stores and catalog houses in Canada. And I had a reciprocal licensing agreement with the largest U.S. clock company. Now, things were going well. And then, like now, the government in the U.S. imposed tariffs. And so in order to import clocks from the U.S. into Canada, I imported them in pieces so that we didn't have to pay the 12.7% duty, which made the clock saleable. However, business is always fascinating. Interest rates went to 21%, and I realized that I was going to lose money.
Yeah.
So I went to it was actually Sears, which is a big company, obviously. And I went to them and I said, Christmas is coming. It's only July, but here's what's going to happen. I need you to help me find a buyer for my company. So we did that. Everything continued as normal. I worked with the buying company for a year. And then the architect who designed my factory invited me to join him and help him grow his architectural practice. Now, he would tell you that he actually had designs on me because we got married 3 years later and we grew the architectural practice from 3 architects to 60. And
Well,
so I grew with it from originally doing the books, becoming the CFO because we had a large $10 million revenue. And so from there, we decided to move to the US. So we moved to Newport Beach,
mm-hmm.
and then I had to find things to do.
Mm.
And so from there, I had 2 infomercial companies. One of them sold $12 million worth of product in 6 months. The other one, uh, there was a whole story and much too long for this, but all business comes with some kind of hiccup.
Yes,
And so
100%.
we were very disruptive to the caustic hair market, straighteners.
Mm.
And so we ended up in a class action lawsuit because our infomercial uh, licensee copied the product and burned people's scalps. It was a disaster. So we started again. This time, Debbie Allen was our spokesperson. We grew to 9 million the first year, and we ended up selling to a company in New York. That's when 9/11 happened. So
Mm.
these are the roller coaster events that happen to an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And you have to be resilient at every stage of this kind of.
Yeah, because you've got no control, do you? Like 9/11, no control. Like there's so many things you had no control over as you go, and like there are hiccups along the way,
Yes.
and it's how do you bounce
How
forward?
do you bounce? How resilient can you be?
Yes.
So when we sold the second infomercial company, that's when 9/11 happened. So we never got the back end funds that we were supposed to get. And we decided, or the company that bought us decided, that it was a time not to do frivolous things. So another infomercial was never done. So I decided, because of that infomercial, I had 50 customer service people that were all, I took them out of my own facility and I put them in a call center because otherwise we were putting band-aids on our phone system.
Mm.
When we sold that call center invited me to be their chief financial officer. So in my life, I've oscillated between being a CEO, being a CFO, back and forth. So after that particular gig, again, because of my Hodgkin's, okay, this isn't working. I need to do something differently. It's kind of like I held my nose and I jumped off the cliff of my life and became a business coach. And so for the last 26 years, I've been through all kinds of trends.
Mm.
Sometimes entrepreneurs are calling, sometimes accountants are calling because we had this huge bill, Sarbanes-Oxley, where they had to change the way they dealt with financials.
Mm.
So accounting firms are growing. So you always have to pay attention to the trends and keep an eye on the horizon and know what's happening.
Mm.
So that leads us to now.
Can I
And
just stop there for a second for me? Because
what?
it's pause there. Sorry, I should say not stop, but pause because you said something really insightful, and I've got a personal question as well. I'll come to that in a second. But like, and I'm sorry that you had to go through Hodgkinson's disease, but it's from adversity. We really do. It's like grief is like an awakening, right? You go through the depths of despair, but there's like this awakening, and then you find out who you truly are. But you talked just before, you mentioned just then about, knowing when to pivot, if you like. Hodgkinson's disease enabled you to do that. Like how, like at what point is there something in you, like from a body, like or a mind, or like like is there something that kind of like I call it my soul, and you might think it's a bit woo woo, but it's almost like when I know or intuition, when I know it's time to pivot or shake it up or move or do things differently, it's something within me that becomes really restless, and it's like it's a noise and it just gets louder and louder and louder, and I have things that happen if I ignore it. Like I'll get these little obstacles that come in my way or like in my face as if to say, hey, why aren't you listening? It's time to move. Like what is your, I guess,
Signals? What are the signals?
what is your signal? That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's the way the world is, and you
Yeah.
just know that. So you always have a choice. Do I do this harder or do I change directions?
Yeah, it's
So
good.
we're in the kind of time right now where a lot of people are, even though they've been very successful in the past, they're struggling because the market is uncertain here in
Mm,
the US.
it's
People don't
everywhere.
know.
Mm,
Yes, they don't know if they should spend money, if they should sit on their money. They don't know what to do. So that's a big signal.
mm,
What do you do? Do you work harder at what you're doing, or do you ask yourself, what else can I do now? What should I always like to think of it as, what should I start doing? What should I stop doing? And what should I continue doing? So what's working well, you continue. But what isn't working is the time when you need to stop doing it. Whether you're a business, whether you're an individual, whether you're in a marriage that's not working,
yes.
whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, is this going to change? Is this something I want to keep reliving over and over and over again?
Mm,
Right? And so a lot of people are afraid of change.
mm.
So they don't make the decision. I can't tell you, I'm sure you've probably heard this yourself. How many times does a leader know that they should, let's make someone available to industry, is what I call it, give them a pink slip, and they don't do it? Of all these reasons why they don't do it, but eventually they know they have to. Well, somehow that gap between knowing you should and doing it, you got to shorten it.
Right, it's like rip the Band-Aid off, and I learnt the hard way with that, but in the end, with, the 150 staff I had, it was just like, "If it's not working, guys, like, let's remove," like, because you're holding up, you put blocks in, you create a friction, and it becomes then energetically for me, it blocks the energy, it blocks the flow, it blocks the ability for, we coming back to bouncing forward. How did you, like, I will come to right now and where you're at now, but how did you, like, along the way, you had 5 children. So were you, like, did you take time out, like, or did you just juggle
Oh,
it?
yeah.
How did you do it all? Because you've had such a significant career. Yeah, how did
So
yes.
my first two children, uh, there was a gap between my first two and my second two, different husbands. So there was 11 years between the two sets. But I never had maternity leave because I've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So I always had to figure it out. I had a home office before anybody else did because I needed to figure it out. So I always ran my homes like a business. So when I had my second set of children, I had a nanny
Mm.
because that was the only way I could
Yeah,
get
how could
things done.
mm.
Now, my fifth son is, he's actually a stepson, and he didn't really come into my life until he was 19. So he grew up in another city. And when he was 19, his mom died. And because he was the half brother of my two younger children, I just took over the role as his bonus mom, which is what he calls me, his bonus mom.
Oh, that's cute.
And so I really grew four. And then the fifth one came by the time the others were, more grown up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's
So
beautiful.
four children, still a lot.
Yeah, it is, and look at you, like, just this, like, I don't like power in the nicest, most possible way, not like a drive power, but just, like, the ability to be able to, it comes, like you say, it's like comes back to just being able to pivot, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about now, you have this innate ability, clearly, to be able to tap into trends, and it's almost like you can see things before they're actually here. I'm a little bit like that myself, where I'm forever thinking about staying present, but always thinking like, problem solving for what's next, if that makes sense. And sometimes I have to pull myself back to where I am right now. But, AI and, the fact like you are a CEO's secret weapon. And, that you said when you were booking in for the pod and I asked you what's one unique insight or lived experience when it comes to life leadership and or business, you said my new AI offerings. And I thought that was super fascinating. Tell us a bit, like you said before, let's tell us where you're at right now. And, you've been writing books and, your view on AI and how integral that is to business, but also how integral still the human aspect is. I'd love your thoughts on that as well.
So I have a school, and in my school, in the Barr Business School, we teach everything you don't learn in school about how to start, fund, and grow a business. Things like strategy, execution, cash management. So, if you take an MBA course, you learn all about cost accounting, but you don't learn necessarily how to run your own business, right? So in order to build a school, I had to create a lot of courses and
Mm,
quizzes and those things. So I started using ChatGPT when it first started 3 years ago, three
yeah,
or more years ago. So I've been using AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude, or it doesn't matter, Gemini, it doesn't matter which one you're using. And I do use them interchangeably. But most of my knowledge base is in ChatGPT.
mm,
So because of that, I realized with my CEO coaching, for example, with so many CEOs are making critical decisions now about hiring and firing and what to automate, what not to automate. And I feel that it's really irresponsible not to understand AI.
yeah. I
And
agree.
I was in a meeting. This was the funniest meeting. I gave a little talk about the importance of AI for service professionals, specifically in this group. They were estate planning attorneys. One guy who was a banker asked me to stay in the breakout room. He had feedback for me. So the feedback was, he starts off by saying, I hope that I'm not speaking out of turn. I hope you'll take this in the way I mean it and I have the best of intentions. And I'm thinking, I hope Zoom just crashes. I'm not sure I want to hear what he has to say. But then he said, I'm so impressed that a woman of your age is teaching us about AI. Now, at first blush, that sounds like very rude, right? But I decided he didn't mean it to be rude.
No.
But what that made me understand was that if you're over 60, or let's just say even over 50, you don't want to be, you don't want to learn about AI from a 25-year-old. You want to feel comfortable that you're
Yeah.
not being left behind and that someone who is maybe your age or older will teach you.
Mm,
So that's what I've been working on. And in addition to that, one of the things that, so you asked me about how to know when to change trends or how to pivot. There's an exercise that I did for myself. It's a timeline exercise. So you start with your very first memory of something significant. It could be when you're 19, could be when you're 21, could be your first job. And you draw a line across the middle of a page, and then you put peaks and valleys. So, for example, you got your first job and that was exciting. That's a peak. You had a divorce. That's a valley.
mm,
Whatever it is. And you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, why was that a peak? What was I doing there? So, for example, when I did my peaks and valleys, when I moved to Sonoma, I realized, first of all, that AI was really critical to me. But I also realized that in my past, I spent so much time as a CFO and people do not understand their numbers.
mm.
And when my son said to me, Mom, what you should really do now is be a CFO again. I thought, ooh, I don't know. I don't think I want to do that again. But here's what I forgot. It's not the same anymore.
No.
Whatever people have done in the past, let's say you were an HR professional and now you want to become a coach. And so I would say to you, coach HR professionals. And they'll say, oh no, I'm done with HR. But that's where their expertise is.
Yes.
And coaching HR professionals isn't the same as doing it yourself, but people are attracted to people with experience. So it's not that you just want a coach, let's say, to ask you questions. You want someone who's been in your shoes
Mm.
to guide you and say, well, maybe not to be prescriptive and say, do this, but certainly to say, in my experience, or here's what I've heard, or so that someone can accept what you're telling them.
It's so true, isn't it? Like, just that whole having, like, I always talk about, walking in my client's shoes, same analogy, right? In terms of having that ability, because there's nothing worse when you get someone giving you advice who hasn't actually had your experience. I'm talking about business here or from a leadership perspective. And it's like, well, how would you know? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're giving me all this, like advice. I mean, you need perspective, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's always better to get that lived experience advice and that understanding and, calling you on your shit, excuse my language, but calling you on things when they need to be called on versus just having somebody that's not with that experience. I love also that you have called out the whole AI piece and that, when it comes back to change and there is a barrier, like, because even just the word AI, it's almost a little bit daunting for, different age groups. And it's like, what do I do with it? And recently I got mum to set up, you know, OpenAI ChatGPT on her phone and just suggested she just start playing with it. So rather than have her like tell her what to do and overwhelm her, I thought I'll just let her play with it as a starting point to then start to give her like little tips and things like that. And I think that, what you're saying here, if it, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, different generations, and we've got so many now within, in the business world or just in life in general. And we've got to play to the different generations, whether that's in life or business, etc. Versus change in the past for me has been like almost cookie cutter in a way. It's like, here it is, this is how you have to do it. But the world's changing so much and we're changing so much. It's how do you bespoke it in a way? So yeah, I love your thoughts on that.
So, B, I want to share something with you. So, I've written more than one book, okay? But this is the first book. This is a CEO's secret weapon, how to accelerate
Yeah.
success. And Simon Sinek wrote the foreword to this book. So to write this book, I interviewed 50 CEOs from around the world and asked them about their challenges. And the book is about how to use your why to overcome the challenges. But the reason I'm sharing that with you is because of my second book, I used AI. But here's how I used it. And here's why no one else could have written this book with AI. Okay. So it's called Raising a CEO from Booster Chair to Boardroom.
That was going to be my next conversation with you. So we're in flow right now. This is awesome.
So this book is about, so I have 2 children who are CEOs. My son, Corey, is 39. He's the CEO of a company that has 1,000 employees. Now, how did he get there? So this book is all the stories of all the leadership lessons that I taught him from the booster chair all the way to the boardroom, okay? And it was often because he was captive in my car. But it started way early, just from how you talk to a child. So there's many, many stories in the book. So nobody else could have written the stories because they're my stories, right? But I did ask AI to improve them. So the flow was great. Then I got to the end of the stories and I said to myself, you know what? Most parents really don't know what leadership is. What if I give them lessons in leadership so they know what leadership is? Well, one of my assets is that I've written 150 book summaries in the last 25 years.
Whoa.
And I have a list of all those book summaries with all the descriptions of what's in each book. I put that into my ChatGPT and I said, now we're going to create chapters on leadership that are going to support and fit with the stories that I told about Corey. And so my ChatGPT created, I think, 10 chapters using 2 book summaries for each chapter, but it figured out which book summaries I should use with which story. And then it wrote that. Now, I had human oversight over it, right? Nobody else has 150 book summaries to put in to support these stories. So I unapologetically explained to people that I used AI. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No. Do you get any backlash? Do people kind of go, have you had any backlash with regards to when you tell people that? Like, have you had any resistance towards it at all? Or are they just...
No, because nobody else could have written it.
No.
It's different if I would just say to it, okay, let's write a leadership book. Okay, here's 150 book summaries, write the book. It wouldn't relate to the stories. And nobody has all those summaries anyway. I suppose they could buy them. But I think that's what makes it different, is because they are my stories. And
Yeah,
that's
totally.
what we'll do. But then I started writing another book. Now, this book is a trilogy. So it's about founders. So there's 3 different stories about founders. I set all the parameters and it's helping me. Helping is different.
Yeah, I think so. And the collaboration, right? In terms of, I'm fascinated by the founder book. I need to get I need to get all the books. But my gosh, my question to you, it's just gone away from me. Don't you hate that when you have a question? No, it's come back. It's just come right back to me. It kind of went, woo, and then here it is. Tell me, Frumi, with all your experience and your wealth of diverse experience across so many different sectors, businesses. You've been a founder and entrepreneur yourself for, for as long as it possible.
Forever.
Forever. Business coach, you've got a school and you're doing, you're reshaping, education. It's real lived life education in terms of when it comes to business and what we really need to know versus, like you say, an MBA, etc. And just not being disrespectful, but traditional education and traditional learning. Then you're building AI into everything and, educating the different generations on that. What are you seeing right now as the biggest opportunities in all your years of being in business? What are you seeing now as the biggest opportunities for whether it be CEOs or founders? And I say opportunities versus challenges because there's always challenges, but from challenges, there's always a possibility, if you ask me. And
Well,
what are you seeing at the moment?
two things. First of all, you need to know your why, your purpose. Why are you here? Because your why will help you overcome the challenges in whatever it is that you choose. So it's really critical to know your why. The second thing is, what I've learned over the years is don't build it so they will and hope they will come. Really look at your assets, just as I said on the timeline. Know what you're good at, know what you love, and then look for what's needed in the
Mm,
world.
mm,
Because otherwise, it's great to be a trailblazer. I've been a trailblazer, and I can tell you some of the trailblazing experiences don't work out so well because you're educating people.
mm,
So you could spend all your money on educating people on some new thing that you've got, or you look for what people really need and people are asking for, and you fulfill it in the way you can best do that.
mm.
So that's kind of
Really?
my advice to people who are thinking of pivoting or thinking of starting something. What is needed?
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Like, sometimes we can get caught up in our own, I'm going to trailblaze, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change the world. And, like, I think it's good to have those North Stars back to your why and have the purpose and what your, North Star is, because that's something that you're always pursuing. But then how do you ground it back in, well, actually what's needed and what's required? And how am I going to be able to serve others and make a tangible difference? I think that's super important as well.
Do we have 2 more minutes for me to tell you a failure story?
100%. Yeah, we can go for a couple more minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when I was interviewing all the CEOs for my book, I asked them about their challenges, and I also asked them if they were in a peer group. And half of them were, so they were very happy, and half of them weren't, and wished that they could be in a peer group, but they were 2 hours out of Dublin or 2 hours out of Sao Paulo or one of those different, so they couldn't travel to be in a peer group. So I came up with this brilliant idea to create a virtual peer group. Now, the year was 2012 when I started the peer groups. And at the time, there was Skype, there was Google Meet, which was very screechy in those days. There was something called Fused, and then Zoom started. So I thought, this is perfect. I can do Zoom because you get a whole bunch of people into Zoom. And we trained um, 12 coaches, and no one was able to start a group because no one wanted to use their camera if they had one. So this was 2013. Fast forward to the beginning of the pandemic, and do you remember how people would use their cameras? So that is my trailblazing story. Why I said being a trailblazer isn't always so great. So
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was my failure. Well, it was a success because it was a great idea. And I did have 12 coaches who were interested in doing it. But it was a failure because revenue wasn't there because no one would turn their cameras on.
Yeah. Interesting. What's your view on failure? What do you think? What do you think about, like, when it comes to failure? Like, is failure good for you? Like, do you think it's a good thing? Like, what
It's a
do you want it?
stepping stone to success. It just means what lessons did you learn? And you have to exercise your resilience muscles.
Mm.
Because it's so easy to say, oh, I failed. I'm never going to try anything again.
Yeah, it's picking yourself back up. I've got this view, and I mean, it's not my own view, but I've adapted it. You read a lot of books, and you probably heard about anti-fragility, and that ability to go from. We have times when we're fragile. I think it comes back to I actually drew it. You can have a look. I drew your little drawing around memory peaks and valleys. I love it. I'm always learning from these interviews as well. But where I was going with it was, there's times where we're in a fragile place, and then we move into this resilience and the bouncing back. But for me, failure is not just bouncing back. It's about how do you bounce forward, because we're always going to come back to being fragile at some point. And it's not just about bouncing back, though. It's like that ability to go forward, like you say, learn from the lessons. How would I do it differently? Take what actually potentially worked, apply the subtractive psychology in terms of let go of what didn't, and then how do you reshape it? I think that's super important more than ever as a leader and in business.
Failing forward.
Yeah, that's cool. Failing forward. Failing forward. Last question for you. You have you've got this energy about you, and it's that entrepreneurial spirit, and you either have it or you don't, right? And you're like, you've got your next book coming, you've got you're constantly doing things, right? And my mum always says to me, I've called her out a couple of times, mum will love listening to this pod, but she always says to me, she said, you'll never not be doing something in terms of when it comes to work, like in business, even when you retire, she's like, you'll always be doing something. You'll always have something, because she could just see me doing that. And I'm not going near retirement for you, but I guess my question to you is, how do you find time to recharge yourself? Like, you seem like a woman who you've got the 5 kids, you've got the grandchildren, you've got your businesses, you've got your school. When do you take time out for you? Do you have something you've had there's a secret to how you've been able to be so successful?
Exercise. I make sure I walk every single day. I exercise. I broke my leg, so I'm not exercising the way I usually do, but I'm still walking 2 miles a day, even though it's with a cane. And I'm pedaling under my desk while I'm in meetings so that I, keep moving. And you know what? I don't believe in retiring, but I do believe in refiring.
What's that? I'm glad so that I asked this question. There's always something always cool comes out of it. So tell me a little bit quickly tell me about refiring.
Well, if someone says, "Are you retired?" I say, "No, I'm refired." And they say, "What does that mean?" Well, I've got something else I'm excited about, so I'm never going to retire. I'll always find something to be excited about.
My gosh, that is a book for me. That's a book in itself. That could be a short story. That's a book. There'd be so many people that would love to read that, because you think about it. So many people, it's a bit like burnout in terms of, when I had my burnout, you fall off the cliff and you're like, what's next? And you have to work it all out. You're in the valley, you're in the depths of the dark, dark valley. And then you hear about a lot of people that have been at the top of their game, and then they just decide to retire. And then they're like, I don't know what to do now, because the hobbies and it's just not enough stimulation. I love the idea of a book around this one.
I'll let you know when I write it.
Okay. And then last, I'm going to let you, is there any final words of wisdom or advice you would like to share? I'm going to keep it open-ended for you, for the audience.
Could I share my email address in case anybody wants to reach out to me?
You're going to do that anyway. I'm going to let you
okay.
share that. So this is just pre that. So yeah, is there any other words of wisdom? Is there anything from any of your lived experience or your is there an AI piece of advice over to you.
I'm going to say it in 3 words. Always be learning.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Now, Frumi, how do we find out more about you? How do we get in touch with you?
The best way is email Dr. Frumi, DRFRUMI, at Scale Up Advisors. Advisors is ADVISORS.biz.
Love it.
B-A-Z.
Yeah, love it. And how do we find your books? Are they on Amazon?
Amazon.
Yeah. Amazing. Yes, well, I've got all your details here. I'll add your email address as well. And for me, from my heart to yours, I want to say a huge thank you. It's been wonderful, and I've come away learning more. I've come away, a more knowledgeable person from our conversation today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dee. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, and have a wonderful Thursday evening. Thank you.